Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us for this Q&A after the long walk. I hope you all enjoyed it, streaming it on the Glasgow Film at Home platform, Best of the Fest. We are delighted to be joined by the director of The Long Walk, Mattie Do.
Sabidi, nice to meet you, everyone.
Yeah. So it's great to have you. It would have been amazing to do this in person, but just the way the world is at the moment, technology is a wonderful thing, and I'm sure we'll touch on technology a little bit because your film have that sort of aspect to it. But I guess just to get started, just a little sort of question about the film. It's very hard to categorize the film, but I think that's a very good thing because it doesn't really fit into any specific little block. There's a lot to digest in the film. So just if you could maybe just talk us through a little bit about where the inspiration came for the film and how you went about implementing that.
I kind of like that it's hard to categorize, I just keep telling everyone it's a time travel serial killer ghost film, which that's the closest thing you could really say. But I think the inspiration came from me not having a film background. I started out studying ballet, and I didn't know much about film before I became a filmmaker. And so for a long time, I didn't realize that films are supposed to fit into these genres and categories and etc. And I watched a lot of genre films now that I'm a genre filmmaker. So when you're doing ballet, our stories are just such a mishmash. Swan Lake is a werewolf story about a swan that turns into a girl during the full moonlight. Giselle is about risen dead. You could say zombies. There's thrillers like Le Corsaire, and then there's all this romance happening and intrigue and mystery happening at the same time as a ballet. So I would say that my inspiration for having a non-categorizable film probably comes from that, from not having the background and from being a dancer and realizing that stories can be everything at once, ghost stories and tragedies and love stories. But the core of the actual story is really, really actually tragic. My mother and my dog had passed away. My mother passed away from cancer when she was 25, when I was 25, not when she was 25, when I was 25. And she elected to not do treatment for chemotherapy. That was that was very difficult for us because she's an adult and she knew that she was in stage 4 and it would maybe be more torturous to have treatment. And so she said, well, let's just spend our time together and go in peace, which was at the end of the day wonderful because we were all there with her, even our extended family. And when my whippet passed away, he was 17 and a half years old, which is a very long life for a dog. But he couldn't tell us when it was time to go. And every time we take him to the doctor, they'd be like, wow, he has a really healthy heartbeat. He's gone deaf, he's gone blind, but otherwise he's quite strong. And so as he got more and more frail, we just didn't know when it was time to let go. And when we finally had to make the decision, we wondered if we did the right thing or if we waited too long. And we'll never know. And I wish that I could go back in time and change a lot of things about both my mother and my dog. But I can't. And as you see in the movie, if you do, it gets fucked up anyway.
I mean, you can tell it's coming from a very personal place. So yeah, I think grief and loss is something that we all have to deal with in life, and certainly it's interesting because obviously in 2020, I think the way that the world is now, we're all having to deal with this new sort of this new normal that we have to deal with. So I think the film almost takes on new meaning now. Having rewatched it this week, it almost takes on a new meaning now as well as the old one. So
totally. I mean, I remember I was in Siem Reap in Cambodia right before the lockdown happened. So I had just come from Los Angeles because I had some work meetings there. And then I went direct to Siem Reap. and it was February, I believe. And at that time, it was starting to spread through the whole world. And I remember being in the audience watching the film on big screen, and every time the mother would start coughing, you would hear other people coughing, and then you'd hear people like trying to stifle their cough, and it got super awkward. We'd all look around like, "Oh shit, is this it? Is this the pandemic spreading?" And then I watched it again recently with an Australian audience after the lockdown, while we were all right now, while we're in the thick of things. And it was strange because it almost feels like I made some kind of pandemic film, but I had no idea this could ever happen to us, like ever.
Hello. Hi, Annick.
Hello.
So nice to meet you.
Hey.
Hello.
I said, oh, that bitch is here.
I am bombing the Zoom.
Yep,
You are Zoom bombing. Look at you. You put a sweatshirt on for us. How nice.
I did. Yeah. Invaders.
This is my amazing producer, you guys. She's the one who, like, no matter what crazy, like, batshit idea me and my writer come up with, she's like, yeah, okay. I mean, like, it's weird, but yeah, okay. She's the one who supports it. Like, for some reason, she just believes in us.
Yep.
I just didn't know what I was doing.
It's so nice to meet you, Annick. Thank you so much for jumping in. Obviously, you are one of the producers on the film. So I was just talking to Mattie there about how the film is quite a hard film to categorize, and it deals with a lot of different things, and it's I really like just a very interesting blend of genres. Just from your point of view, what the sort of when you saw the film and when the film was getting made, what was your sort of thoughts on it, and just anything you want to add in regards to The Long Walk as a film in general?
Well, to be very honest, like I know that it was a very personal topic. The subject is very personal to Mattie. For several reasons that she probably, because I look at her and so I know you've already been over that, so we're not going to go back into that. But
Don't go back there.
I honestly, since I've been working with her and Chris, her husband, who's a screenwriter, like they just throw stuff at me and I read it and I feel like, yeah, like we're going into the good direction. So I think that when I read The Long Walk, what I really loved about it, it was anchored in her culture, and it touches, like it plays with the genre. So I honestly, I didn't really think too hard about it. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's Mattie's next film. There's some stuff to work on the script, but if that's what she wants to do, then, let's try to produce this. So I think that the relationship that I have with Mattie and with Chris is I totally 100% trust them on what they want to do. And I'm just really there to support and try to get it financed, really.
Amazing. And Mattie, from your point of view, have you found that when it comes to you getting your vision on screen, have you found any obstacles there, or is it very much do they kind of let you do what you want to do and yeah, just go for it?
He said, just go for it, Annick.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm allowed to just go for it. To be honest, I think this goes for anyone in the audience who wants to be a filmmaker or who is at the moment starting their career. Team matters a lot, especially if you're doing sort of more auteur works like The Long Walk, works that aren't entirely familiar or commercial or mainstream. Your team is everything, because as a director, you helm an entire vision, and it's your job to get everybody on the same page, to jump on the same boat and to steer it with you. You know what I mean? It's just like if you had a ship, and as commander of the ship, you can't do everything yourself. Someone has to operate the sail, someone still has to scrub the deck, someone has to pull the anchor, and that is definitely the case. We're very lucky with people like Annick and some of our other core team members that they've never questioned the end goal of what I'm trying to do. I mean, of course, I take criticism, I take notes. Like when Annick was being very mild about when she said, there were some issues with the first draft of the script, and it was fine. We just fixed it. The first draft of the script, I think she called us and said, what the fuck is this? We need to talk. And like, we overhauled it. Do you remember that, Annick? You emailed us and you're like, we need to talk. And we called, and you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, what story are you trying to tell?
Yeah. Because I didn't know you were going to say it's fiction or not, but yeah, it's all about the
team. It's not recognizable from the first draft at all, is it? So, I mean, the boy even had like brothers and a sister-in-law in the first draft. It was weird.
There were too many strings. There were too many layers.
It was too multifaceted and
amazing,
profound. But we did have a lot of obstacles because this was our first time working with some new members of the team in various positions, in various capacities. And like I said, when the other members of the team don't understand what the end result is meant to be and don't understand what your goal and your vision is, and they don't support it, it's very difficult to make that film. So yeah, we had some massive upheavals in this film. And I think for Annick and I, it was one of the most trying experiences in our life. Like, there was a point during the film that we didn't know if it was going to get made at all, in the middle of making the film, actually.
We had that actually 5 days into the feature where we had to, I mean, as Mattie says, like she's the one really, you know, everyone has to follow her to make the film possible. But then 5 days into the shoot, unfortunately, we had major problems with a person from a key person from the team. We had to very quickly make a decision, and 5 days into the shoot, I just made a decision of just like, you know, letting this person go. So then we had to stop production for 3 weeks, find a new person, fly that person over. And actually it was the best that could happen to us, because then the results were, you know, were better than we had hoped for.
Right. With only 2 days to prep too. And I made the decision off of our money. So both Annick and I took massive pay cuts to reshoot the 5 days that we had lost. We didn't get additional time because the other producers, who were also difficult, they wouldn't give us the time, but I didn't ask them for the time as a matter of pride also. But I also wanted to reshoot everything so I could get it the way I needed it and wanted it to be. And we weren't asking for extra budget, and Annick understood that. So myself and Chris, as well as in some instances, Annick took the hit.
Wow. I think in terms of the sort of filmmaking side, obviously that's things that are, you know, kind of in your control, that you've been able to make a decision on and do that. But obviously where the film is set and where you filmed it, obviously in the sort of jungle areas, was there any sort of obstacles that came up while you're doing the filming from that point of view? Because I know what the weather can be like sometimes, you know, so
you mean like
it's a jungle.
Yeah.
the cow
baby that got hit by a car.
the baby elephants that did not get hit by a car. Thank God, I would have died if we hit a baby elephant. Yeah, like, I mean, we shot in the jungle. There were a lot of things that happened. Like, our generator broke for a week at one point, and that was crazy because we're in the middle of the jungle. There's no electricity out there. Like, we're pulling in lines from people's houses and paying them for their electricity to make up for the fact that our generator broke. So imagine like hundreds of meters of cable being pulled in from like some lamppost at someone's house. Like, yeah, our art truck, a baby cow, a herd of cows came by, and a baby cow jumped out in front of the art truck. And so one of our art assistants hit this cow. And I remember like they were late to set, and I was just like, where is the art team? And then we get this phone call, and they're like, Mattie, we hit a baby cow. How much can we budget for this cow? And I was like, what? Like, what does that mean? How much can we budget for a cow? I don't know how much a cow fucking costs, you know? And I was like, how much does the farmer want? And they're like, he wants $150. And I was like, I don't know, that sounds really cheap for a cow. And they're like, well, it's little, it's a baby. And I was like, do we keep it? Or not that I want to keep it, because like, what do I do with the dead cow? And so in the end, my other producer, my Lao producer, negotiated the cow down to $50 and 3 cases of beer. And they said that we could have the cow. And I said, no, please keep it. I'm so sorry about the cow issue. And that night they brought us barbecue. Oh my God, people in Scotland must be like, what the crap is going on in Laos?
Yeah, that is quite the story. But you know, like the people of Scotland all enjoy a nice barbecue, so I mean,
yeah, it was
I'm
delicious.
sure, you know, they'll accept it.
Yeah. And they shared the beer too.
Oh, I mean, that's one thing Scottish people don't do. They won't share their beer, so that's the main difference. I mean, the film is done incredibly well across the sort of world at festivals. It's done really, really, really made its own sort of mark. I mean, I'm quite interested in how the reception's been in Laos, though, because obviously, Mattie, not to like, you know, embarrass you a little bit, but you are quite the trailblazer when it comes to being, you know, a director from Laos. You're like the first sort of female filmmaker from Laos. And I'm just wondering how the reception's been and how you've sort of dealt with navigating that level of expectation that would come with it.
To be honest, it's kind of a mixed bag because the people here, including the government, are extremely proud. They're super, super happy because Laos doesn't really get noticed, you know, like we're that place where they're like, oh, I'm just kind of by Thailand or something, right? You know, like that's generally what people know about Laos. And so for them, it's fantastic to them. It's stunning that we could have our stories and our films and our locations being shown like on big screen all over the world, and that our actors and our films are winning awards around the world. So for the people, they're super excited about that. There's not a lot of expectation, surprisingly, from the Lao people about what I do or what I do next. They just know that I'm going to make some crazy film. They know that my work tends to be more international, and they're happy with it. The mixed part of this reception is that a lot of my films don't actually play so well in Lao because they are a little more advanced in the concepts are a little like out of the box, and Lao people are much more used to like soap opera melodrama type films or very, very commercial rom-com or basic horror type films, you know, like jump scare after jump scare, or the girl falls in love with a douchebag boyfriend for some reason and they become rich and happily ever after, or like movies with noises or where people voice their thoughts out. Like nobody thinks, they don't have reactions, they say what they're thinking. And so for them, it's very difficult to have a movie like mine that's like quite deliberately paced, where you have to put the pieces together, where my team doesn't take them by the hand and explain anything to them, where they just have to pay attention to the details is very difficult. So in that regard, my films aren't that popular, but they're happy, they're proud.
So I mean, I guess that's something that a lot of filmmakers will find in their own sort of home countries, and I guess it makes sense that the film has found an audience out with, you know, your home country, because there's obviously just the type of genre cinema that it is. It can reach a sort of wider mindset.
Well, we've only had like, sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Cinemas for like, what is it, Annick, 3 years now?
Mm-hmm.
Right? 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah.
When our second film, mine and Annick's second film, had opened, the cinema was like barely a year old, I think. And right now we only have like 3.5 theaters, 3.5 or 4.5 theaters in the entire country of Laos. So, you know, while like they aren't used to this kind of content, there's a reason for it, because post regime change, post revolution, there were no movies. The first film we had was an art house slice of life film that was black and white, you guys, like black and white in 1985. And then after that was my Lao producer's film, which is a romantic like comedy melodrama. And that was like 2001, I want to say. So they've just not really been exposed to anything outside of extremely blockbuster, popcorn tight and Hollywood content yet. And So I believe that maybe in like 20 years, some university kids will start like studying my content and being like, oh wow, Lao did have some interesting films. Dude, that's cool. That one old granny, she made some weird fucking films. But not right now.
So in regards to as well, I wanted to get your sort of both of your opinions on the future of sort of genre cinema, because it's something that's very dear to my heart, genre cinema as a whole. But I think a big thing we have to look at now is it would be good to see more genre cinema coming out that is coming from people from all backgrounds and not just, white men, which unfortunately for a long time it's been, horror cinema and all that sort of stuff has been, white guys doing a bunch of films about, whatever they think of.
White fears.
Exactly, yes. So just how do you feel about the future of genre cinema, and also if you have any advice for filmmakers out there, because I'm sure there will be some that will be watching the sort of stream when it goes live. So anything any advice and just what your thoughts are, it would be great to hear that.
I'm throwing this one to Annick, because you're the one who's like working in all those crazy markets and stuff like that. Go for it.
I think that honestly, with everything that's been happening in the last few years, the Me Too movement, this kind of like rumble in Hollywood, and the fact that there's new players, in town, like Shudder, for example, in the US, UK, Ireland, they are now in Australia, New Zealand, and even Germany. Those are companies that are specifically looking for genre films, but they are, the programs there are curated by younger people who are part of the genre community, who started, as writers for Fangoria, or, who didn't work for Toronto After Dark, or, festivals. So there are people who have connections, and they've been on the circuit, and they've seen younger female or Asians or colored people debuting in genre film and genre cinema. And so we've been following each other, the careers. So I do believe that with everything that's been happening over the last few years, this is a great time right now. It's encouraging. Like, all these filmmakers are coming out now. They know that they don't have to fear, like being pummeled or being criticized for, bringing their own culture into their stories. And I think that the world has finally, let's say not the world, because most of the world was open to it, but let's say Hollywood, the Hollywood machine has understood that it is possible to attract attention and to please crowds with other cultures, and that women are as well, as good directors are men. And so the future, I think, is pretty bright, thanks also to, VOD platforms. And as I said, this younger generation of film curators at festivals, at platforms. I myself work, I'm head of a film market, which is concentrating on genre film, which is the Frontier market in Montreal. And I'm always on the lookout for for newcomers. People who don't have an experience doesn't mean that they're not good directors. So what it needs also, I think, is producers who take a chance on someone who hasn't done anything yet in terms of feature films. And if you look at Mattie and myself, like, I hadn't produced anything before I really did Dear Sister with Mattie, and Mattie hadn't done really, she had done a feature film before, but so our combination was like, oh, let's just try, let's see what happens. Like, she trusted me as a producer who has absolutely no experience then, and I trusted Mattie, to do it. So I think it's also having someone trust someone else, and it has to go both ways. And when I look at the talent that is out there right now, at the short films you can find on the internet, on YouTube, it's crazy. And I think there's going to be an explosion pretty soon. And I can tell you, like, Hollywood is looking at what's happening on the web right now. So for me, I see that as a very bright future for genre.
For myself, yeah, I made a feature film, but it was like a total home video that ended up being a feature. It was an experiment. We just didn't know that it was going to become my first step into filmmaking. And I'm, me, Annick, I'm one of those types where I'm like, why the fuck am I making a short film? Why wouldn't I just like keep doing this and turn it into a feature? I don't understand why we would just make a feature. And so with like $4,500, I made a feature and you saw it. But to be honest, this question always baffles me, especially for not coming from a film background, because I mean, honestly, you guys, it's 2020 and I don't see how having a dick or having yellower skin or darker skin or even having like sexual preferences is going to affect my skill at filmmaking. Like, I literally don't need a cock to make a film. Like, I for real stoned. I've never had to whip it out to use it during any shoot yet. I haven't. So, I mean, I prefer everybody keeps their clothes on my set, you know, like, please. So that's something that always like baffled me, that when I came into this field of work, that it was such a problem. And you're right, and it's changing a lot now. Like, there's been a huge upheaval. I worry a lot about how deep the changes will be for now, because sometimes I feel like, oh no, now we have like a check mark. We got to check a girl, we got to check a Black person, we got to get a gay director, not really caring about the story they have to tell. And that's problematic, but we're going through a growth, like a really rocky growth right now, right? And at least the realization is there. But I do feel personally that I'm fucking bored of just white dude stories, you know? When I first saw, for instance, I saw Under the Shadow, the film about the jinn, and it was fantastic. It had all the elements that a genre film, a successful genre film, needed. Amazing performances, super cool sound design, amazing legend that we don't normally get to see because that's not our culture. And yet it played so well for everyone. We all understood it. We all were terrified. So I think that for myself, I seek that out more, because like, we're all pretty bored of like the Victorian lady crying in the corner of the house in her white frilly nightgown. You know what I mean? Because that's all we've ever been fed.
I guess it comes down to, you know, quality aside of films, and certainly from my point of view from programming festivals, you know, quality aside, I think it's all about opportunities, and the opportunities need to be there for people to make a film, and unfortunately in the past I don't think that has been the case. So I think the world is definitely trying to take steps to make that sort of more accessible for people and give people opportunities, but I think we all just need to try and really, you know, do what we can to help everyone and stuff. So yeah, I think what you say sounds great, and I mean, I let's just hope that it keeps growing the way it does. But just before we sort of wrap up then, I mean, what's next for you guys? What's have you got plans for the next feature? Have you know, got that in the works yet, or what's going on?
We just finished recording a dual video about this. That was like semi-disastrous, but people seem to like it, by the way, Annick. Yeah. We are working on our next film that's actually included in the Macau IFAM project market. It's called Entanglement, and this is the film that I had spoken to you about before the Q&A, where I said, I don't think that mine and Annick's career options have been diminished by COVID, but I do think that we will have to face a lot more different obstacles, and our start time might be extremely different, and our budgets will have to be higher, because just the logistics of traveling people is completely different now. Quarantining people, treating people should something happen, the quantity of people that might be able to be on set in certain countries. Things have changed a lot, and I think all of us are trying to go with the flow, to roll with the punches, to know what the next thing can be or how it can be done. But it doesn't mean that it won't be done. You know, it's just right now everybody's kind of unsure.
Cool. So yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. Before we sign off, really, is there anything else that you'd like to say, or just, you know, get out there in the world and let the Glasgow film audience know about before we sign off, basically?
You go, Annick. What do you want to say?
No, I just want to thank the audience, for watching our film.
Yeah, for real.
Really, thank
You
you
got
so
through
much.
it.
And thank you so much for including it. This has been really great.
I'm so proud that we can be considered like best of the fest. The first time you guys emailed us for Glasgow and said that it's kind of like a best of the fest, I thought, oh, that's sweet that they'd say that. They don't really mean it. But then when I saw you releasing the statement that it is like best of the fest, these selections, I was like, holy crap, they mean it. So I'm super happy, and I hope that the rest of the audience that may not have been able to go in person for the first edition of the festival get to see it in the comfort of their own homes with their dogs and their cats on their lap eating popcorn. And I hope that next time we have a film that we can like party together in Glasgow.
Well,
Yes.
fingers crossed that COVID will be out of the way and we can have a nice party in Glasgow, and yeah, it's going to be good. But yeah, just from my point of view, I just want to say thank you so much to the both of you for joining in. Thank you so much for letting us show the film again. As you say, we love, from Glasgow Film Festival, we love to champion female filmmakers. It's a big sort of thing for us. But obviously the quality has to be there, and I think your film is full of it. And it's just nice to be able to give people the chance to watch it again. So yeah, I think if there's nothing else that you guys want to add, and I think that's that for this little question and answer session. But thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And yeah, just
Okay.
have a safe rest of the year, and fingers crossed we can all navigate through this tough time. And yeah,
Yes.
we'll be back in cinema seats partying before we know it.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you guys so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you
Cocktail
so much.
alive.
Thanks. Bye-bye.